Okay, for now we'll set up a tent for you all outside the village. Stay there. Hey you guys, get the tent up. After hearing their orders, the goblins and ogres set off as a group. Having them in a tent outside the village could become problematic. If possible, I'd like to make a house for them inside after they've been trained not to attack the villagers, of course. We have to go around and convince everyone to accept them. I don't think it will be any trouble if you're the one telling them, Henry. Also, about tomorrow, Enfira and Henry were supposed to take a couple of goblins as an escort and head to Rantel. Sorry, but I have to treat the survivors from Arg's tribe, so it doesn't seem like I'll be able to go. Those goblins were going to live in the same village as the ogres who had been eating them. They needed both treatment for their injuries and care for their minds. But knowing Lizzie's personality, she would probably have the opposite effect and terrify them. Enfira was the only man for the job. Really? That's a bit nerve-wracking. Henry had never been to a big city like Rantel. When she thought of what she had to do there, it weighed heavily on her. Then what about asking the village headman to go with you? I doubt he can. The headman needed to pay attention to village systems and maintenance. He also needed to help new villagers, so he probably couldn't go too far. In an NGH, honestly, there aren't enough people in this village. It was like that before too, but now it's even worse. Khan had always been barely getting by. After the decrease in population, it was functioning markedly worse. That's why they had suppressed opposing voices and put out a call for new settlers. We need to go to the shrines in Rantel and see if there are any people who will move here. This is too much for a village girl to do. Do your best, Chief. Henry puffed out her cheeks in frustration. She didn't want to hear that from Jujumu. One of the reasons she was running around was to take care of the goblins serving her. I really want to go with you, but Enfira moaned, seeming extremely disappointed. Then he deliberately brightened the mood by saying, "Oh, but you don't need to worry about a thing. I'll keep an eye on Nemu, so you can just focus on your work and getting back." It's like I am the only person in the world getting worshipped all of a sudden and having to pretend I am all important. I am forced to go to someplace I've never been and do all sorts of work I've never done. Don't be so down, Henry. If you look, I am sure there's at least one more person. Jujumu and Enfira chuckled at Henry as she slumped her shoulders. Last of all, a little ways removed from the others, Arg whispered in a voice no one else could hear. So she really is ruling those goblins by her strength. Boss Lady Henry, chief of Khan Fortress City Rantel, true to its name, was surrounded by 3 walls. The gates in the outer wall loomed large and sturdy. They brimmed with rugged dignity. These gates were supposed to repel any attack from the neighboring empire. Anyone passing through the city had seen travelers gape before their imposing presence. Surely, they had all made that face at one time or another. Next to the gate was a checkpoint. Several soldiers were lounging inside, seeking shelter from the sun. They may have seemed slack for soldiers in a city liable to be on the front line in a war. But their duty at the checkpoint was to inspect travelers. It was their job to spot spies from other countries or people transporting illegal contraband. So if no one was entering the city, it was only natural there would be no work. These rank-and-file soldiers with nothing to do had not gone so far as to play cards to kill time. They didn't bother hiding their yawns either. They seemed bored at the moment, but when they had work, they always had a lot of it. Especially early in the morning, right when the gates opened for the day, things were hectic. It was hard to describe just how busy it was. When the sun reached the highest point in the sky, they started to see a scattering of travelers on the road. It was normal for people to travel in groups. Monsters were liable to appear, so groups were safer. They always came in clusters. Things were about to get busy. Thinking along those lines, a soldier looked out the window. He set eyes on another wagon coming down the road. This wagon was separate from the main group. There was a single woman in the box seat. There didn't seem to be any people in the uncovered cargo bed. She was a lone traveler. The woman didn't appear to be armed. From that, he guessed she must be a girl from some village, but the thought made him cock his head. It wasn't so rare for villagers in the region to visit the city, but a single woman, unaccompanied. That was a different story. It was impossible to claim with any certainty that there were no monsters or bandits out there. This was despite it being the outskirts of Rantel. It was true that nearly all the dangerous monsters and outlaws had disappeared thanks to the efforts of the legendary adventurer Team Raven Black, but that didn't mean there were none. normal threats like wolves were still present. This was common sense, not only for the E-Rantal region, but also for any city. It was simply reality, so why would anyone let a girl travel on her own? It was possible her party had been attacked by bandits and she had run for her life. But she didn't look troubled. She seemed incredibly composed, like she was traveling with the knowledge that she was perfectly safe. Who is this person? With the question still on his mind, the soldier shifted his eyes to her horse and was thrown into confusion again. It was a magnificent steed, not at all the sort of animal a village girl would possess. Its physique and coat brought to mind a warhorse. Warhorses fetched extremely high prices. Even if someone managed to get the cash together, they were simply sold to ordinary people. They were the best mounts available, outside of monsters like wyverns and griffins. If a regular person got a hold of a warhorse, they likely had some kind of connections. But there was no way a village girl had friends in those kinds of places. There was a possibility she robbed its original owner. But when something so valuable got stolen, retaliatory measures were definitely taken to the point where even career thieves avoided targeting someone riding a warhorse. He concluded that there was a very good chance she was no mere village girl. But then, who is this woman dressed like a villager? The hint was that she was traveling alone. In other words, she was confident in her abilities. And those abilities were hindered by her plain appearance. She didn't need gear. Therefore, she had to be someone whose equipment didn't correlate closely with her combat ability, like a caster. That answer made sense to him. If she was an adventurer like many casters, she would have plenty of cash and connections. This would give her a far better chance of acquiring a warhorse than the average person. Is that a caster? A fellow soldier came up next to him and voiced the same guess. Could be, the first soldier answered, furrowing his brow slightly. Casters were a pain to inspect. First of all, their weapon magic was inside them, so it was invisible. There was no method to gauge how powerful their attacks might be. Second, it was possible they were using magic to smuggle something dangerous into the city. Uncovering that was difficult. Third, they carried a lot of specialist paraphernalia. This required annoying processing. Those were some of the main issues. To be frank, he hated inspecting casters the most. That's why they borrowed personnel from the Wizards Guild and paid them handsomely for their services, of course. Should we call him? Or I guess we have no choice. If we let her through and she causes a problem, we'll be in trouble. If only casters would dress so you knew at a glance that's what they were. In a shady-looking robe carrying a shady-looking staff. Yeah, if you saw that, you'd know they were a caster. It would also be good if we could force them all to join the Wizards Guild. We could require them to carry a sign, like the members of the Adventurers Guild do. They looked at each other and laughed. The first soldier, who had been sitting the whole time, stood up. He was going to meet the potential caster girl. As the soldiers watched, the wagon approached the gate and stopped in front. The girl got out of the driver's seat. Sweat beading on her forehead showed at a glance that she'd been traveling under the sun. She wore long sleeves and long pants, probably to cover herself from the rays. Neither garment was very well tailored. She seemed like a normal village girl. You could find her anywhere. But she could have been something else on the inside, possibly hiding something. He'd learned since starting his job that things weren't always what they seemed. He cautiously approached her. We've got a couple of questions for you. Do you mind coming with me to the guardhouse? He addressed her with a mild expression and a tone that was familiar. It was as if to say, we don't suspect anything of you at all, so go ahead and let your guard down. Sure, that's fine. The soldier brought her over. Two soldiers followed at a distance of several yards, on the alert for charm or other mind control spells. The others casually observed as she went by to ensure she didn't make any suspicious moves. Is something wrong? Oh, no, nothing. If she can detect subtle shifts in the atmosphere, she's no mere village girl, thought the soldier as he led her to the gate's guardhouse. Okay, can you take that seat there? Sure. She lightheartedly sat in one of the chairs in the office. First, give me your name, and please name your point of departure. Okay. My name is Henry Emmott. I come from Cairn near the Tove Woodlands. The soldiers exchanged glances. One of them left the room to check if she was listed in the ledger. The kingdom kept records on its residents. However, the records were fairly sloppy. Many birth and death updates were late. Some people were missing so much so that some estimated there were tens of thousands of errors. For that reason, It wasn't too good to rely on the ledgers too much, but they could still be useful. Despite how unreliable the records were, there was still a massive amount of information stored within. It would take quite a while for the other soldier to finish checking. Knowing that, the soldier decided to proceed with other matters. Can I see your pass, then? Usually, anyone entering a city had to pay a toll, which was also called a foot tax, but making people from that city's domain pay would slow everything down, so it was common to provide a pass to each village. The toll was waived for people who held a pass. Of course, the system varied depending on which noble controlled the land. It should be here somewhere. Henry started to rummage in her bag, but the soldier stopped her. No, let me look. Can you hand it to me? She obediently gave him the bag, and he carefully inspected its contents. He found the parchment. He unrolled it on the desk and skimmed it from top to bottom. The literacy rate in the kingdom was low, but checkpoint soldiers obviously had to know how to read and write. They were assigned to their posts because they had these abilities. I see, there's no mistake. I confirm that this is the pass given to Khan village. He rolled up the parchment, put it away, and handed the bag back to Henry. Now tell me why you've come to Rantle. My first order of business is to sell the herbs I picked. The soldier flicked his eyes out the window to her wagon, where an inspection of her pots was underway. Can you tell me the names of the herbs and the number of pots? Of course. There are 4 pots of Nukuri, 4 pots of Agiana, and 6 pots of Enkashi. 6 of Enkashi? Yes, that's right. Henry smiled with pride. The soldier figured that was only natural. Since the soldier worked at the checkpoint, he had some familiarity with herbs. Enkashi could be picked for only a short time, right around the current season. It was often used to make healing potions. High demand for Enkashi meant it fetched a good price. It depended on the size of the pots, but 6 would probably make her some decent money. So where are you planning to take them? I used to do business with the Baylor family. Baylor? You mean the apothecary Lizzie Baylor? Apparently she wasn't around anymore, but until recently, Lizzie Baylor had been the top apothecary in Rantle and was quite famous. If this girl had been doing business with her, she was probably exceedingly trustworthy. The soldier concluded that he didn't have to dig any deeper. Their job at the checkpoint was to keep dangerous people or items from entering the city. Once something was inside, it was out of their jurisdiction. He nodded with a grunt of approval and looked away from Henry. There was nothing suspicious about her story. Nothing in her face said she was lying either. Once the examination of her cargo was complete, his work would be done for the moment. Just then, the soldier who had gone out returned and nodded. That meant a woman named Henry was in the ledger. Still, all that proved was that a woman named Henry had been born in Khan. It didn't guarantee that the woman sitting before them was actually her, and it said nothing about the sort of life this Henry woman had lived. She could be someone who had traveled and gained great magical power, then returned to her hometown. Or Henry could have died on the road, and this person could be a criminal who assumed her name. That's why there was one more thing to check. Got it. Can you please call him? The soldier nodded and left the room again. Now I am going to perform a body search. Is that all right? Henry looked at him with suspicion. The soldier hurried to add, it's not a problem. Sorry, but this is standard procedure. We barely do anything, so I hope you'll be at ease. If that's all, then I understand. The soldier breathed a mental sigh of relief. He didn't want to anger someone who might be a caster. The soldier who went out came back with another man following him. This newcomer was a caster. His pale face had a hooked nose and hollow cheeks. He was sweating profusely, probably because of the oppressively warm-looking black robe he wore. In his hands, he grasped a gnarled staff with fingers that looked like chicken bones. The soldier's personal opinion was that if the caster was so hot, he should simply take off the robe, but perhaps because he was attached to the style, he stubbornly insisted on that attire. Maybe that's why it felt like the temperature in the room rose a few degrees when he entered. Is this the girl? The caster's voice always made the soldier feel weird. Going by appearance alone, the soldier guessed him to be in his late 20s, but his voice was awfully hoarse. It was impossible to tell how old he was from just his speech. Did he only seem young, or was his voice just throaty? Surprised, Henry looked between the caster and the soldier. The soldier figured it was only natural that she be surprised. He was surprised the first time he heard the caster's voice too. This is a caster from the Wizards Guild. He is going to do a simple inspection, so please wait a moment. He gestured that she could remain seated and then bobbed his head to the caster. Go ahead, all right. The caster took a step forward and faced Henry head-on. Then he cast a spell, Detect Magic. His eyes narrowed, like a beast eyeing its prey. The gaze that made even the soldier feel threatened seemed to not affect Henry. I knew it, he thought. Anyone who could remain unfazed under such intense scrutiny couldn't be a mere village girl. Without experience confronting a monster or someone trying to take one's life, it was impossible to face those eyes bravely. Given her lack of reaction, the soldier felt his assessment was justified. My eyes won't be fooled. You're secretly carrying a magic item on your hip. Now Henry seemed surprised and looked down at her waist. The soldier braced himself slightly. If it was a weapon like a sword, he could understand, but he didn't know anything about magic items. You mean this? The item Henry produced from under her shirt was a shabby horn. It was small enough to hide in two hands. It was the sort of thing the soldier would have let pass at a glance. That's a magic item, indeed. You mustn't be fooled by its appearance. That thing contains great magical power. The soldier was astounded. That item contains enough power that this caster calls it great. How much power could it really have? The soldier started to get the feeling this girl had dressed shabbily on purpose. He felt a chill, as if a blade were pointed at him. No explanations necessary. My spells detect all. The caster shut Henry up and cast another spell. Appraise magic item MMGH. For a few seconds, the caster's face cycled through emotions: first shock, then awe, terror, and finally confusion. What is this? The power contained here is no normal power. It is far beyond great. It cannot be. What in the world is this? Spittle flew as he shouted and his face grew red. Who are you? We won't be fooled by your clothes. Alarmed by the sudden change in the caster, the soldier also widened his eyes at Henry. I am a normal person. I am just a villager. Really? A village girl? Why do you lie? If that is true, then how did you get this item? It makes sense if you were not a mere villager. Huh. Sir Ain't Ulgown gave it to me when he saved my village. Another lie, You're saying a priest from the theocracy gave it to you? Is he from the theocracy? Gather your men. This girl is too strange. The soldier had no idea how things were going in that direction, but this caster had never reacted in such a weird way before. He figured he should treat it as an emergency and put his own thoughts to the side. All troops assemble. All troops assemble. In response to the soldier's shout, his colleagues checking the cargo raced over, obviously tense. You expect me to believe this person simply handed over such a powerful item? Where did you get it? There's no way you're just a village girl. No, Sir Gown really did give it to me. Please believe me. The soldier looked between the two of them. Certainly, since he and the caster were colleagues, and the caster had responded to the checkpoint's request for help, the soldier was inclined to believe him. But Henry seemed like only a village girl frightened by the dramatic shift in attitude. Did something happen? Please tell me what made you suspicious of her. HMPH. First of all, that horn has the power to summon a goblin mob. I don't know how many, but that's the power it contains. The soldier frowned. That could cause quite a bit of trouble if it was used in the city. But was that the only issue? There were plenty of people like adventurers who carried magic items. This horn wasn't so strange among all the other magic items, considering that. The way she keeps claiming to be a village girl is also fishy. Would you give a magic item worth several thousand gold to a nobody? Several thousand? Several thousand? It was such an unbelievable sum that both the soldier and Henry yelped. A normal person would never see several thousand gold in their lifetime. Is this shabby horn really that valuable? Yes. You wouldn't give something like that away without a reason, especially not to a peasant. Of course, it would make sense for a first-rate adventurer or caster to possess such an item, but this girl keeps saying she's just a village girl. Isn't that strange? That explanation made sense to the soldier as well. People with superior ability attracted objects with superior powers. Many historical figures with superhuman abilities possessed immensely powerful items without exception. It was fate as well as necessity. No, I really am just a village girl in the first place. I've never heard of this Ain't Ulgown character. At least he's not a caster from this city. Probably not an adventurer either. The captain of the Royal Select knows Sir Gown. You mean Sir Gaze of Stronov? Your story is outrageous. Why would you know something like that if you were just a village girl? Because he came to my village. It is true. If you ask him, ULLC, there was no way they were going to contact the captain in the capital.